The Greatest American Hero turned a lost instruction manual into one of television's most endearing accidents. Premiering on ABC in March 1981, it placed a supersuit in the hands of William Katt's rumpled, good-natured, remedial education teacher Ralph Hinkley and promptly lost the paperwork needed to operate it. Robert Culp's gruff, relentlessly skeptical FBI agent Bill Maxwell supplied the mission. Connie Sellecca's sharp-minded attorney Pam Davidson supplied the grounding, and Ralph supplied the property damage. Across 3 seasons, the series proved that audiences would follow a man in a red spandex suit just about anywhere as long as they believed in the heart beneath the cape. Yet behind those crash landings and that chart-topping theme song was a production shaped by real-world tragedy, a lawsuit from one of comics' most powerful names, and a suit that made its star genuinely miserable. These are 15 facts about the Greatest American Hero. Stick around for number 15 to see how the actor, who once wanted nothing to do with this show, eventually became its most devoted champion. Before we suit up, hit like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our deep dives into classic television that refuses to fade away. Number 1. The ordinary man who built an empire of ordinary heroes. Stephen J. Cannell built his career on a single instinct: put an ordinary person in an impossible situation and see what happens. It was the same idea behind the Rockford Files, where James Garner's Jim Rockford was a private eye who lived in a trailer and regularly got roughed up before solving the case. The Greatest American Hero took that premise to its most literal extreme. What if the universe handed an ordinary person, not a billionaire, not a scientist, just a man with no particular destiny, actual superpowers, and then removed the instructions? The character Cannell built was Ralph Hinkley, a remedial education teacher at a Los Angeles high school, a man who made his living trying to reach students everyone else had given up on, handed a suit designed for someone far more prepared than he was. Few viewers knew that Cannell was severely dyslexic at a time when the condition was poorly understood and often mistaken for a lack of intelligence. He had struggled through school, been dismissed by teachers, and yet went on to create the A-Team, Wise Guy, and 21 Jump Street, typing every script himself on a typewriter. Ralph Hinkley was the clearest expression of everything Cannell believed, that the right person doesn't need to be exceptional from the start, they just need to show up. Number 2. The theme song that outflew everything around it. When Cannell described The Greatest American Hero to composer Mike Post, Post's reaction was simple: "This makes no sense as music." But Cannell wanted a full theme song with actual lyrics. Post called his lyricist Stephen Geyer with a brief that was hard to argue with: "Write something that makes superhero incompetence feel like falling in love." Somehow that worked. Joey Scarberry recorded Believe It or Not, and in the summer of 1981 it climbed to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, held back from the top only by Diana Ross and Lionel Richie's Endless Love. It spent 18 weeks on the chart, reached number 1 on both the Cashbox and Record World rankings, and topped the charts entirely in New Zealand. For Scarberry, who had spent nearly a decade releasing singles that disappeared without notice, the shift was complete. Suddenly, he was sharing chart space with Hall & Oates and REO Speedwagon. Years later, Seinfeld's George Costanza adopted it as his answering machine message, introducing it to an entirely new generation. For a show about a man who couldn't figure out his own powers, the theme song had no such problem. Number 3. The suit that made every day a punishment. The red suit looked the part on screen. In reality it was, by William Katt's own description, one of the most uncomfortable garments ever placed on a human body. The material didn't breathe. Under hot studio lighting, Katt described the experience as being sealed inside a red spandex oven. The flying harness was worse. It bruised, pinched, and pulled him in directions he hadn't anticipated. During one session it sent him directly into a wall. The cape caught on everything within reach and turned ordinary movement across a set into a negotiation with fabric. The production team had to modify the costume and restructure the shooting schedule repeatedly just to keep Katt on his feet. None of that suffering made it to screen. What looks like a superhero in his element was frequently a man in genuine physical discomfort, finding a way to make the performance convincing in spite of it. Number 4. The missing manual was the best thing that never existed. Ralph Hinkley losing the alien instruction manual was not a promising premise. It was a limitation waiting to become a problem. It became the writer's most valuable creative tool. Without a fixed set of rules governing what the suit could do, the writers had absolute latitude. One week Ralph had super strength. The next he turned invisible or discovered heat vision or found he could communicate with animals. Landing remained unresolved throughout the entire run. What should have frustrated audiences became the show's deepest charm. Ralph wasn't a polished hero mastering alien technology. He was a decent man figuring it out as he went with no one from the civilization that sent the suit willing to pick up the phone. The missing manual also gave the writers a built-in reset. New power required by the plot. Ralph just discovered it. Power from last week no longer useful. User error. It was chaos on paper and comedy in practice, and it gave the greatest American hero something rare in superhero storytelling: genuine, sustained unpredictability. Number 5. The Cosmic Emblem designed with office supplies. Ralph Hinkley spent 3 seasons wearing an emblem on his chest, a symbol that implied alien origin, technological sophistication, and the vast mysteries of a civilization beyond human comprehension. It was based on a pair of scissors from Stephen J. Cannell's desk. According to Cannell's own account on the Season 1 DVD commentary, the moment was unplanned in every conceivable way. When the costume designer needed to know what the suit's chest emblem should look like, Cannell had no prepared answer. The designer looked around the office for reference, spotted the scissors, flipped them upside down, and said, "This is it." Cannell agreed. In a production built around a hero who had lost his instruction manual, it was fitting that the suit's official symbol was arrived at through an equally improvised process. The emblem joined a long tradition of television design decisions that looked deliberate in hindsight and were settled in the space of 30 seconds. Number 6. The co-star who refused to stay in second place. Robert Culp arrived on The Greatest American Hero as a supporting player, as Bill Maxwell, the cantankerous FBI agent assigned to keep Ralph pointed in the right direction. He left as something close to a co-lead and one of the show's primary creative voices. His resume made that trajectory inevitable. 3 seasons on I Spy opposite Bill Cosby, 7 scripts written, an Emmy nomination for one of them, and 3 consecutive Best Actor nominations, losing each time to Cosby. He was not an actor who had come to hold the cape, while someone else carried the story. So he asked for more. He wanted sharper dialogue, a bigger role, a character who existed in his own right. Producers agreed. He then did what he had always done. He wrote and directed. 2 episodes of The Greatest American Hero bear his name as both writer and director, including the series finale, which Cannell handed to him with near-complete creative freedom. Maxwell and Ralph worked because they were opposites. One man who believed deeply in systems and rules paired with another who had lost the manual for the only system he had ever been given. Culp made sure his half of that equation had as much weight as the other. Number 7. The attorney who held the whole thing together. Connie Sellecca played Pam Davidson throughout the entire run, Ralph's girlfriend, later his fiancée, and the only one of the 3 with a law degree. In practice, that last detail often made her the most useful person in the room. She was one of the very few people who knew Ralph's secret, which meant carrying that weight without a suit, a badge, or a manual. Pam was not simply the girlfriend in danger every week. In many of the show's stronger episodes, she was the person with the clearest head in any given crisis, navigating the complications that Ralph and Maxwell generated on a weekly basis while somehow keeping the whole operation from coming apart. In a show built around things spinning out of control, Connie Sellecca was the center of gravity. During The Greatest American Heroes run, she was the quiet anchor the story needed. Number 8. The real-world tragedy that forced a 12-day scramble. On March 30th, 1981, just 12 days after The Greatest American Hero premiered, John Hinckley Jr. attempted to assassinate President Ronald Reagan. The show's lead character was named Ralph Hinkley. The phonetic match to the would-be assassin's surname was close enough to alarm network executives. What followed was not a clean rename. It was a patchwork scramble. In the episode that aired within days of the attempt, producers buried the surname wherever it appeared, overdubbing Mr. Hinckley to Mr. H, and in one airport scene layering jet engine noise directly over spoken mentions of Ralph's last name. The name wasn't replaced. It was drowned out. The following episode went further. Hinckley was overdubbed to Hanley throughout, the only episode in the series where that name was actually spoken aloud. For the rest of Season 1, Producers simply avoided the surname entirely, referring to him as Ralph or Mr. H. By the season 2 premiere, Hinkley was back, restored without ceremony or explanation. What history remembers as a simple name swap was in practice a weeks-long workaround held together with overdubs, jet noise, and careful avoidance. Number 9. The accidental genius of the crash landing. Television flight in the early 1980s was a negotiation between ambition and budget, and the greatest American hero lost that negotiation every single week. Wire rigs, blue screen compositing, careful camera angles, none of it was seamless. Rather than script clean arrivals and cut away before impact, the writers made the opposite call. Every miscalculation became a scene. Every unplanned landing became a punchline. The crash wasn't the thing that happened when the flying went wrong. The crash was the point. As the seasons progressed, the effects work improved, but the crash landings did not go away. The audience had come to expect them, and more than that, to need them. A clean landing from Ralph Hinkley would have felt like a betrayal. The budget forced a limitation. The writing turned it into a signature, and the signature became the thing viewers remembered long after the plots had faded. Number 10. The comic giant that tried to ground the show. DC Comics looked at the greatest American hero and saw a problem. A man with super strength, flight, invulnerability, and a distinctive suit who fought crime in a way that looked uncomfortably like Superman. Warner Brothers, acting on DC's behalf, sued ABC and the production company for copyright infringement. The defense made two arguments. First, the show's real inspiration had nothing to do with Superman. The model was Cannell's own Rockford Files formula, an ordinary person dropped into a situation that demanded more than they had. Second, Ralph's bumbling relationship with his powers put the show closer to parody than imitation. Others pointed out that the alien-granted powers had more in common with Green Lantern than Superman. The court dismissed the case, finding the comedic premise sufficiently distinct. The show continued, but the lawsuit cost money, created uncertainty, and served as a reminder that even a show about a man who couldn't figure out his own powers wasn't immune to the serious business of copyright law. Number 11. Ralph Hinkley lived again. In the late 2000s, William Katt returned to Ralph Hinkley on his own terms. As a writer, he teamed with 3 collaborators to produce a 3-issue miniseries published through his own company, Catastrophic Comics. For a character who had spent 3 seasons destroying property, the company name fit perfectly. The miniseries was a continuation, not a reimagining, with the same characters, the same relationships, and the same fundamental dynamic translated to the page and moved forward in time. For Katt, it was more than nostalgia. The character he had once found professionally limiting, he now helped write. It reached its audience quietly, but among the show's dedicated following, it was evidence that the red suit story hadn't ended so much as paused. Number 12. The spin-off that never made it off the ground. 3 years after the show ended, NBC decided to try again. In 1986, they produced a television movie called The Greatest American Heroine, intended to launch a new series. Ralph's secret identity had been exposed, so the aliens came back and told him to find a replacement. He chose Holly Hathaway, an elementary school teacher played by Mary Ellen Stewart, who took the job without fully understanding what she was getting into, and then made every mistake Ralph had ever made in roughly the same order. Maxwell continued to yell about the suit. The flying remained imprecise. NBC passed. The movie was re-edited and quietly folded into syndication as the show's final episode. The concept had worked once, but without the specific chemistry of the original 3 leads, it turned out the concept was all it was. Number 13. The show the creator wanted to make. When ABC's Marcy Carsey and Tom Werner approached Cannell about developing a superhero series, he came in with a clear vision. The powers would live in the suit, not the man. Ralph would tackle ordinary problems rooted in recognizable human flaws. Then Carsey and Werner left ABC. The executives who replaced them wanted something younger, broader, closer to a children's program than the adult drama Cannell had designed. The grounded storytelling gave way episode by episode to exactly the kind of conventional superhero plotting he had set out to avoid. As Cannell put it plainly, ABC wanted an 8 o'clock series, and he didn't usually do 8 o'clock shows. The result was a show pulled in 2 directions, which explains why the best episodes feel surprising and the weakest feel generic. Number 14. The reboot that kept finding believers. The Greatest American Hero attracted serious development interest more than once after cancellation. In 2015 and 2016, Phil Lord and Christopher Miller worked on a new version for Fox that never reached the pilot stage. In 2017, ABC committed to a version from the Fresh Off the Boat writers centered on Mira, an Indian-American woman from Cleveland whose life was upended when aliens delivered a supersuit. New girl actress Hannah Simone was cast in the lead. By May 2018, ABC had passed 2 separate efforts, 2 networks, proven creative teams, and none of them found the combination that worked. The original succeeded because of 3 specific people: Katt's warmth, Culp's authority, and Seleka's grounding, a chemistry that couldn't be reduced to a format and couldn't be reproduced on command. Number 15. The actor who came back to the Cape. William Katt wanted distance from the show. Before the red suit, he had built a real resume. His performance in Brian De Palma's Carrie announced genuine screen talent. He had auditioned for Star Wars and worked across Gunsmoke, MASH, and Marcus, Welby MD. When the show became what people knew him for, he struggled with it. The bumbling hero routine felt limiting, and the network's handling of the series had frustrated him. What changed his mind was the fans. Convention after convention they showed up and told him the theme song still played in their heads. They told him that Ralph's warmth and decency had mattered to them growing up, and that it still did. They didn't come to remind him of something embarrassing. They came to say thank you. Katt listened and gradually shifted. He embraced the convention circuit, made peace with the show's place in his life, and eventually with its place in his identity. The role he had once wanted to leave behind became something he carried with a degree of pride. Thanks for watching these 15 facts about the greatest American hero. If this brought back memories of watching Ralph crash into walls and Maxwell grumble about it, hit like, subscribe, and share this with a friend who still has Believe It or Not on their playlist. Until next time, keep watching.